Hello, my name is Jenny Cross. My presentation today will hopefully provide an insight into what information family court judges, magistrates and social workers need to help them in making decisions about the capacity of parents in crisis to care for their child. I shall be focusing on parenting assessments as they play a major role in determining parenting capacity, but I would first like to briefly touch on the importance of bonding and attachment experiences in a child's early life. To introduce myself, my professional background is as a social worker and as a social work trainer. I also served many years as a magistrate, including sitting in the family court. In addition, for nearly 30 years, I have been sitting as a specialist member of the Mental Health Tribunal, including being on the CAMS panel. And I have twin daughters. My presentation will cover the significance of bonding and attachment experiences in relation to a child's developmental needs, why parenting assessments are so essential for social workers and the family court when considering parents' capacity to care for their child, and finally consider the question, can parents learn to be better parents? Bonding and attachment. Bonding and attachment are important aspects of a child's emotional development. They are the first vital connections that are made between parents and their infants that enables a child to form and maintain relationships. The ability to form healthy, enduring relationships are dependent on both bonding and attachment experiences during this early and vulnerable period of a child's life. Bonding is the process of forming an initial relationship between the infant and the primary caregiver, normally a parent, sometimes described as the emotional glue that bonds us together. Essentially, it is a set of behaviours that are constant, nurturing and responsive to the infant, with an emphasis on positive physical contact, such as hugging, holding and rocking. Importantly, these behaviours all trigger specific neurochemical activities in the brain of the child, which I shall say more about later. Attachment is the enduring emotional relationship with a specific person that is established over a period of time. The relationship offers the child safety, comfort, soothing and pleasure, but conversely, loss or threat to the relationship can cause intense distress. Importantly, later in life, secure attachments in childhood help children to form healthy adult relationships with others. How bonding and attachment experiences can affect the brain. Evidence shows there are changes in specific parts of the brain during infancy and early childhood that allow for the development of the ability to form emotional relationships. The systems in the brain that are responsible for healthy emotional relationships will not develop unless the infant has a positive experience of bonding and attachment. Timing is crucial, as bonding experiences and the development of healthy attachments are set down in the first 3 years of life, with experiences in the first year having a significant impact on the developing brain. In these early years of life, the human brain develops up to 90% of adult size, and most of the systems and structures are put in place that will be responsible for all future emotional, behavioural and social functioning during the rest of life. What are the consequences of poor bonding and attachment experiences in childhood? Lack of bonding associated with deprivation and neglect can have irreversible consequences for the developing brain of the infant. The impact of childhood trauma and maltreatment on the developing brain, known as adverse childhood experiences, is so great because it occurs early in life, at critical periods when the brain is most rapidly developing and organising. The failure of attachment can lead to an anxious, avoidant child who may develop behavioural disorders such as conduct disorder, which expresses itself in defiant, aggressive and antisocial behaviour. What are the consequences of poor bonding and attachment experiences in adult life? Poor bonding and attachment experiences in childhood can have consequences in adult life that can lead to impulsive behaviour, problems trusting others, forming relationships, and cognitive difficulties, such as with problem solving. Many may show behaviours diagnosed later in adulthood as personality disorders, where typically they have emotions which are too intense or lack emotional response. So why do family court judges and magistrates need to know about bonding and attachment? Well, they are often in the position of making life-changing decisions for children and young people. It is therefore important for them to have an understanding of the theory of bonding and attachment and how these experiences can impact on a child's emotional and social development. Significant emphasis, therefore, is given to bonding and attachment in the training of family court judges and magistrates. The Common Assessment Framework. Before moving on to parenting assessments, I would like to briefly touch on what is known as the Common Assessment Framework. This is because parenting assessments do not stand alone, but are part of a holistic and multidisciplinary approach to safeguarding and promoting the welfare of the child. Each local authority in England and Wales has its own child protection procedures and protocols for assessment, but they will be guided by a systematic approach to inquiries, using a conceptual model to deliver a comprehensive assessment for all children. This is known as the Common Assessment Framework, which is set out in the diagram. As can be seen, the child is central to the process, and there are three main areas, starting with the child's developmental needs, then family and environmental factors, and parenting capacity. Assessing parenting capacity, as can be seen, covers such considerations as the provision of basic care, ensuring safety, emotional warmth, stimulation, guidance and boundaries, and stability. When talking about parenting assessments, for simplicity, in this part of the presentation, I shall imply two parents in the family, but often children will come from single-parent families. Again, for simplicity, I mention a single child, but there may be more than one child in the family. Why do parents present a risk to their child? Research has shown in many cases where there are concerns about a child's welfare, the parents will be presenting with one or more of the following difficulties: intellectual impairment, substance misuse, mainly drugs and alcohol, mental health issues, and domestic abuse. Risks to the child increase significantly if the parents are raised in households where one or more of these issues were present and themselves experienced some form of abuse or trauma in childhood. So, why a parenting assessment? This may seem an obvious question, but to summarise, a parenting assessment would be considered necessary where there are serious concerns about the risks to a child around the parent's ability to care for them. Usually the parents will have previously received a substantial amount of help and support, but the risks remain. The assessment would normally be the responsibility of a social worker from the local authority Children and Family Service. What is the aim of a parenting assessment? Essentially, the aim of the assessment is to establish the parent's ability to ensure their child's health, safety and developmental needs. An aspect of an assessment that is not always fully appreciated is that it can also be used as an intervention to see how and if the parents can be supported to change by developing their parenting skills. The assessment should identify what the parents are doing well and what support they would need to provide good enough care for their child, and the viability of any such support will depend on the parent's attitude. Finally, the assessment will be used to help in deciding who should care for the child in the long term. So what have parenting assessments got to do with the family court? Well, a parenting assessment will usually form part of care proceedings brought to court by the local authority children's service. The family court may also make a request for a parenting assessment to help in making all important decisions about parenting arrangements for the child. Any assessment will need to be carried out within a strict time frame to avoid any delay that would be detrimental to the child. Where the parenting assessment is part of court proceedings, the rule is that timescales should not exceed 26 weeks. The time frame may be extended. This is where investigations or activities need to be completed, but essentially this will need to remain within realistic timescales for the child. Preparation for a parenting assessment. To facilitate the assessment, a pre-assessment planning meeting is held between the parents and professionals. Meticulous planning and clarity is needed with parents as to what is being assessed and how the assessment is to be carried out. It is recognised that this can be a stressful experience for the parents, who may feel threatened and demoralised about their ability to parent, so working in partnership with parents is key. There may be the need for specialist advice or expertise from other services to support the assessment, such as from the Community Learning Disability Team, Substance Misuse Services, Probation, and the Community Mental Health Team. Finally, a contract called a Parenting Assessment Agreement will be agreed and signed by all those participating. How is a parenting assessment carried out? This is an example of a parenting assessment schedule. As can be seen, a detailed assessment programme will be drawn up with the parents, stating specific tasks and activities with dates, times and venues, and who will be present. The assessment may take place in the family home, a day centre, or at a specialist residential family centre where the family will reside for the assessment. A family history will be documented, and the parents may be given questionnaires about their attitudes towards parenting and possibly workbooks to complete. The parents will be observed with the child, and crucially, some of these observations will be unannounced. Outcome and recommendation. The essential part of the parenting assessment is the outcome and recommendation as to whether the parents can adequately care for their child. It is the responsibility of the social worker to gather all the evidence from observations and assessments and bring together the final analysis of parenting capacity. It is important that information is gathered from many different sources, such as through unannounced home visits, information from other services, and discussion with parents, and then triangulated as part of the analysis. If the parent is thought to have the potential for change, consideration will be given to the likelihood of achieving such change within the child's developmental timescale. The recommendation will significantly influence any decision by the local authority and the family court as to whether the risks to the child can be managed within their family, or whether the risks are so serious the child will need to be removed to be protected and thrive. What are the possible outcomes for the child of a parenting assessment? There are essentially 4 possible outcomes. For the child to remain with their parents, for the child to live with another member of the family, for example grandparents, for the child to be fostered, and for the child to be put forward for adoption. These outcomes will need to be accompanied by what is called an impact analysis of each of these options on the child. So, can parents learn to be better parents? What are the negative indicators for behaviour to change? There are certain factors that can influence the likelihood of a successful change in parenting behaviour. For example, parents may have had no positive experiences of parenting to guide them in their role as a parent. And achieving change can be difficult for a parent who has experienced poor parenting themselves, and they may repeat negative aspects of their childhood experience. A parent may also first need to address their personal problem before being able to cope with the responsibility of parenting. However, some treatments and therapies for addiction and mental health difficulties are lengthy interventions and will not always fit realistically within the timescale for the child, but may do so for subsequent children in the family. Positive indicators for parenting behaviour to change. On the positive side, behaviour can be modified if parents are able to show some insight into the part played by their own adverse behaviours, have ability to seek help and make use of professional support, can translate information and put it into action, and are able to sustain changes in behaviour that are needed over the time frame for the child. Protective factors such as non-abusive partner and the presence of a supportive kinship family, typically grandparents. So good parenting is achieved by developing an understanding of child development, by providing consistent care with clear boundaries, by providing a nurturing environment where a child is safe and can thrive, and also 2 elements need to be present: ability to change and motivation to change. So yes, with some help, parents can learn to be better parents. Thank you for watching. Jenny Cross. And for more information, we have a book, Mental Disorders, Mental Illness and the Family Court.